Hello, everybody. My name is Andy Sokolovich. I am the Vice President of Economic Development for the Clinton Regional Development Corporation, and welcome to the May edition of the Clinton Regional Business Roundtable. We changed up the name, so I knew I would slip the first time around. We're excited to have representatives from Clinton Community College and Eastern Iowa Community College today to talk to us a little bit about the programs that we've recently created, the Manufacturing Awareness Program. Also, maybe what workforce likes moving forward, what training grants are available as we roll out of the pandemic, hopefully, and get back to what's known as that new normal. What does it look like to train our future workforce and then also our current workforce to ensure that they're able to support those existing businesses within the greater Clinton region? Again, my name is Andy Sokolovich of the Clinton Regional Development Corporation. There is a chat window. If you scroll down the bottom of your screen, there is a little chat bubble. You can go ahead and type in your questions there. I have a few that I received via email, and we will ask those at the end. But first, I would like to introduce a relatively new face to the region. That's Brian Kelly. He is the president of Clinton Community College. Brian, like I said in the pre-show, it's unfortunate that you rolled into our community right before the pandemic kicked off. We weren't really allowed to celebrate. I don't believe your family's here yet, so many people will not recognize your face. So go ahead and just introduce yourself, and then feel free to take some time and talk a little bit about your plans for CCC moving forward.
Yeah, thank you, Andy, and pleasure to be here today. Pleasure to be with all of you. I've talked to many of you on the phone along the way here. And a little background: on February 1st, I started as president of Clinton Community College. On my first day here, I ran the Bury Scurry, and it was a little warmer than I had expected. So came in with a decent time and felt all right. Also, during those next 6 weeks, I drove 3,300 miles in Clinton and Jackson County, trying to meet as many people as I could, meet as many of our industry leaders, our school leaders, just get out into cafes and talk to people, really get a feel of what was going on. And I think that's about the time that the newspaper had contacted me, and I talked about the optimism, what we could be doing in these counties, the role of Clinton Community College. And I went home for spring break to Oregon, where my family is still located. And by the time the end of spring break happened, we saw that the coronavirus was starting to explode. I flew back on March 25th on a plane from Portland, Oregon to Chicago O'Hare with 7 people on the plane. It was a red eye. Arrived into O'Hare. From the gate at O'Hare to my Uber, I passed 7 people in O'Hare Airport, and I know many of you have been there, and quite a ghost town. So after that, we really have been focusing on migrating curriculum online. We've really been focusing on serving our students. We received some CARES Act dollars, and we're really focused on moving those to students. I'm really pleased to say about 500 students received payment yesterday, their first payments from the CARES Act. So at a time where our students really need those dollars, a lot of them are working in the hospitality industry. A lot of them are working in retail and haven't had checks. So this is certainly a timely response to them. And we have been on campus all this week getting ready for what I'm calling a slow, safe, and gradual reopening. Next Tuesday, we will open for appointment only. And on June 1st, we will start to open a little more with extended services, computer labs, library by appointment. We're doing a lot of appointment. We've got a lot of social distancing messaging in our spaces. A counselor or an advisor would meet with a student in a classroom just by themselves, separated by a plastic shield. We're really going all out in the safety piece, but I think there's a lot of anxiety for people as we slowly re-enter some of the spaces we haven't seen in a few months. And it's our job to really make people assured that we're taking all the steps we can. So that's the synopsis of my last few weeks. I have had the pleasure of meeting and working with many of you. And as we transition here into talking a little bit about the Manufacturing Awareness Program and some of the workforce development pieces we can do, I'm excited about how this developed in a time where we didn't have the best set of circumstances, but we collectively saw a need. And I'm seeing this as the starting point for many great relationships between EICC, Clinton Community College, the CRDC, the Chamber, and our local industry partners. If we can do this in this type of circumstance, imagine what we can do in the best of circumstances when we're working in a room and really engaging in this. It's important to know that a lot of the challenges we had existed prior to the coronavirus, right? We had available manufacturing jobs, and we were struggling with finding people to fill those jobs. We had companies that wanted to expand, but realized they couldn't expand without the workforce. So I think in this situation, it's really important to sometimes take 2 steps back. And I think about an energy management program I had at my last college that was nationally recognized. Building technicians, heating and air conditioning, solar, wind power. We had a really strong program. And many of you might know the company Johnson Controls, one of the largest companies in the world, 150,000 employees worldwide, 2,000 locations. And they had come to one of our advisory committee meetings, and they said, we will hire every graduate you have. Every graduate you have. If students finish this program, we're hiring them. And at the time, this was several years ago, but these were $45,000 to $48,000 a year jobs. So living wage, benefits, good jobs in the community. I couldn't fill that program. With that promise at the end of a 2-year program, I couldn't fill those seats. We always had availability. And we realized, in terms of awareness, no one had grown up seeing themselves as an energy manager, right? We can all sit in our chair and we can say, when I grow up, I'm going to be a fireman. I'm going to be a doctor. These are the things that I'm going to be an astronaut. We can put ourselves in those shoes and we can feel what that might be like. But for a lot of the jobs we have today, we don't have a clear vision of what that looks like. We didn't take part in that in childhood games, and we didn't really see those things. So this is what I like to call a 2 steps back approach. When we move backward, we say, hey, let's talk about what these are, and let's talk about some of the skills you have. And Tim does a great job of talking about, the crossover in some of these industries and the skill sets you might need in hospitality or travel or tourism that relate directly to things like logistics within manufacturing. And so that's what this approach is. We're really looking at a 2-step back approach to educating our citizens about possibilities that might already exist in a new world. I talked to a good friend in the Bay Area the other day, and he was talking about a renaissance for manufacturing. And what if this crisis really doesn't see us realizing job growth in some of the areas we traditionally had seen job growth? Again, back to retail, hospitality, some of those places. If that goes slow, maybe this is a time where we bring back a little more manufacturing, we expand some existing manufacturing, and that's where the jobs are for a while. And maybe as a result of this, maybe one of the silver linings is an increased ability to participate in manufacturing within this country, and certainly within our region, which has been ready for it for a while. So super exciting time. We're really excited to be a part of this, and we're really excited to roll out some of our initiatives. These are early initiatives. I see many more. I see many more partnerships with the folks here on the meeting and our partners in the community. And I'm going to hand it over to Tim so he can talk a little bit more about the detail, or back to Andy.
Yeah, I'll take it real quick. I just have, yesterday Tim and I engaged a group of human resource professionals that represented about 6 local large manufacturers in the area. And Tim, just with a simple head nod or a yes or no, how many of them said they were hiring? I believe all of them, correct?
And that was all 6.
Yes. So, I mean, here we are. I mean, they're getting the orders in. They're adaptable. They're out there seeking fresh talent to come into their organization and support the increased demand they've experienced, even during and shortly post this pandemic. So that's all I have to say. But the demand is out there, and then we are working collaboratively to meet it. So Tim, I'll let yourself and Jim kind of tag team back and forth if you want to highlight. I don't know if you want to talk about how the program is being funded. You want to talk about how the program is going to be fleshed out and how we're going to roll it out. I'll let that up to you guys.
Yeah, Tim, why don't you start with a little bit of background? It's I'll just simply say it's been a very enjoyable experience. Once it's common nowadays for Tim will send me a text. Hey, you got 10 minutes to talk, and an hour and 10 minutes later, we have hundreds of ideas to run with. And so the challenge right now is picking the couple, the 1 or 2 that we want to put a lot of hours into, and that's kind of where that's a little bit of a background on how this initiative became formed. It was a short call with myself, Tim, and Brian, and it turned into that week probably 50 hours. And so, yeah, Tim, if you want to give a little bit of tell the story about how this formulated.
Yeah, and really it's Aaron and Brian. Aaron reached out to Brian, and it was about putting people into workforce training programs. The thing is, we have the workforce training programs very similar to what Brian was talking about with the energy manager programs. We have them. The age-old problem we have had for the last 5-6 years has been, how do we attract people into these manufacturing positions? How do we attract them into the programs at the community college? How do we engage them into learning? Because their perception is, this is a dirty job. This is a job I don't see. I drive by the manufacturing plants every day, but I really don't know what happens in them. So I have my own view of it, and I don't see myself working there. I'm stocking shelves at Hy-Vee. I'm waiting tables at Candlelight. I'm working at Data Dimensions in a call center or processing paper. I'm in high school, and I'm going to a 4-year school. When I get done, I'm taking English and science. But what actually happens in those facilities? And the first target market, and this is where the ideation was coming, was it's the retail worker and the restaurant worker that is in a call center worker that's probably laid off. So how can we get them some knowledge quickly into to make some decisions with their lives and help the manufacturers find workers. But what it morphed into was, there's all kinds of target markets here. We've got the high school kids that are graduated. We've got people in facilities that are on a downturn. Those that are making refrigerator shelves are laid off. Those that are in paper pushing kind of places that are call centers are laid off. Those that are making food, those that are making touchless water fountains, those that are making shrink wrap, those businesses are expanding. Those that are making pet food, those jobs are still coming. So how are we going to do this? And so how did we came through? It's almost like a DIY program. Is we had a program of 1-hour classes called Tooling You out of Cleveland, Cuyahoga Community College, funded by the Haas Foundation. They have an extensive library of classes. We started thinking, how do you get these introduction classes to just one 1 hour class to an introduction to a field, that might be the ticket. And so from that, we came up with a laddered approach of 25 and 25 classes, 25 hours. But even that's too much for someone to really bite off. So it's really 3. If you like the 3, you can go from there and take 10 more and get a certificate. You like those, you can take 12 more with a little more advanced knowledge of the skills needed in the fields. And so now you have information and a little bit about the skills you'd have to study, and then we're ready to go. They either go to work in an entry-level type assembly job, or in the supply chain side of the warehouse driving a forklift, or they move forward into a short-term training program, or even a longer-term training program like a machine operator, a CNC machine operator. So the object was to give them information in very small, low risk, dip a toe in the water, so to speak. And in the past, we'd always asked them to dive into the deep end of the pool. This we get them toe in the water, then they're in the wading pool, then they're in the shallow end. And some will go into the deep end and go into programs. Some will go to work. And it's not a bad thing for some to say, this isn't for me. But now they know it's not for them. It's not a wondering in their life what that was. And so the more that take these classes, the more people, through spreading word of mouth and everything else, will sit there and go, hey, I can do this. I actually succeeded in a 1 hour class. I made an 80. I didn't think I could do that. And so we're trying to remove all the barriers to get people to just try it. It's a lot like the tastings at Costco. You try all kinds of things and you don't buy most of them, but every once in a while you do buy something, and that's the whole part of this is to give them an idea of what's happening. And I think Jim brought his project management expertise to this and really pushed us along in the ideation of it, but also in the piloting of it, because we actually already we rolled it out last Friday.
Yes, sir.
And Aaron brought it to our attention April 13th. And we have students already in the program succeeding and completing classes. So I think that's a testament of pushing forward and not getting caught with all of the other things that could occur, because we see the promise. There's 100 different audiences that this could go to. But right now, we're really excited, and I'm actually doing the intake. I'm talking to the students. I'm working through to make sure that we know we've got the right classes. We start them with forklift safety, assembly, and supply chain. And from there, they then go to things like intro to welding, intro to CNC, intro to additive manufacturing, intro to electrical stuff, basically maintenance workers. So we're trying to get through all of the different things to give them an idea. So that's kind of in a nutshell, probably 10 minutes worth of what the program is.
Yeah. Thanks, Tim. I appreciate that. Also in the chat room, I did include links to both the program one sheet as well as a link to the website where you will see the 25 and 25 manufacturing awareness program kind of detailed out with contact information if you are interested. Erin Cole, President and CEO, has raised her hand. Erin?
Yes, good morning. I just want to say thank you. Obviously, first and foremost, it's been a pleasure working with you. You know, Brian's new. We had a chance to meet at his reception when he first arrived, and we haven't physically seen each other since. And yet, we've been on the phone as much as we have, and this came to fruition. Obviously, Andy and Tim, you work together all the time. Jim, fantastic partner. So I just want to say thank you. This did come together really quickly. I sincerely hope it's going to be, you know, a real benefit to the folks who live in our community who are looking for jobs. Someone mentioned Data Dimensions. We did receive the official warn notice from Data Dimensions about 136 layoffs just recently. So there are people out there in our community looking for work, and I sincerely hope that this is going to be an excellent opportunity for them. So very grateful to all of you for working with us to put it together.
Yes, thank you, Aaron. I do have a couple questions that we did receive via email, and I want to make sure that individual that sent the questions to me is on the line, so I want to make sure they're answered while he's with us. He just basically said this comes from Dr. Mark Schrader of ISU Extension and Outreach. What can we do to assist with securing quality jobs for those who actually complete the program? Placement has always been a challenge, as well as keeping folks here in Clinton County. So they go through the manufacturing awareness program, they obtain that certificate, they get into the deep end, they're no longer just dipping their toes in the water. What steps can we take to ensure they're actually working for a manufacturer, and hopefully that manufacturer resides here within the greater Clinton region? So I'll toss that out to Tim, Jim, Brian, whoever wants to jump on that.
So I'll just touch very briefly on that. First, this manufacturing awareness program, it wouldn't have come to fruition if it wasn't for everybody who's on this call. As Tim mentioned, this is a pilot. It's 1 week old. And so, but it's caught so much attention, so much positive attention in just the last week that we've had to really almost kind of protect it. And so, as we put it a couple of days ago, it was almost like this was meant to be. Things continually fall into place without any effort. From the marketing side of things, the initial conversations with Brian and Aaron, to Andy and his amazing background with marketing and advertising, and being able to tweak the message in a very captive way. To Tim's background, he mentioned Tooling U. Well, if we go back 8 years ago, Tim was working closely with Tooling U, and he hasn't worked so closely, for a while. But this, reignited his his knowledge of Tooling U. So just long story short, it's continually amazing how things fall into place. And so the way we kind of put it right now is this is a pilot, and we're still trying to be very protective of it. Tim is a one-stop shop for this program right now. Just as he mentioned, he's fielding the calls. So they're emailing Tim. He's asking some very good questions. First of all, how did you hear about this? We want to know, and a lot of it is obviously through the Clinton organizations and Andy and word of mouth, and so he wants to know what's your current situation, and he's heard I've just recently laid off from this company. What's your background is what he asks, and so he's the encouraging voice of, hey, you may not have been in manufacturing before, but I'm going to give you some information. I'm going to give you some background. You can do this. Let's get you transitioned into this manufacturing awareness program. So when I say everything fell into place, if somebody other than Tim right now was the leader of this, I don't think it could have gone so well. He has that natural way of speaking. Okay, so it's a pilot. Very, very soon it's going to be it's not going to be a pilot. It's going to be a fixed program within the ICC. And so the way we phrase it is, we're going to take this pilot and we're going to drop it into the EICC process, because typically there would be, maybe 5 people doing what Tim's doing. And one of those is a career placement, career specialist. And the area that makes me feel really good about this is the Clinton community is so tight. Everyone can pick up a phone so quickly and say, hey, so Tim's working with, he mentioned several students right now that are in the program. It's an easy conversation right now in this pilot where Tim can say, so now you've gone through the first 3 classes. What do you think? Okay, let's put you into the next 10. And is manufacturing something that you're interested in? Well, Tim has a countless number of contacts in the Clinton area, including obviously the CRDC. So I can imagine Tim picking up the phone, or Brian picking up the phone and saying, we have this person who would love to get into Nestle Purina. Let's make that connection. So that's kind of, just a quick little answer on that. But yeah, overall, the next phases of this is going to be moving it out to other communities. But we're not going to do that until, just as Mark mentioned, until we feel comfortable that it's been embraced, that all the steps, all the people are in place within EICC, and that includes career placement. So, yep. Tim and Brian, I don't know if you want to add to that.
Well, I do want to say that one of the keys, and this is the partnerships with the CRDC and Marine with the Chamber, and I think it's equal numbers have contacted me from the communications from each organization. And in fact, Aaron, the very first student was on layoff from Data Dimensions before the notice from the WARN Act. So he had seen the writing on the wall and had wondered what was out there. And he's already heavily into phase 2, level 2. So we're talking about whether he's going to go to work and go to school, which is probably what he's thinking. So those are the things that excite me. But one of the most important parts is, in the past, a lot of initiatives, you start with paperwork. And that is a barrier for people that have not been in school for a while. It's a barrier for those. It's one more piece of fear. I look at fear of paperwork, math, are the two things that scare them the absolute most. We have removed that to the point that I get their registration information, so to speak, and take care of those pieces for them because of the sponsorships of the program. Now, as this drops, so to speak, into the EICC system, we can't lose sight of the fact that one of the most important things is to have a very ease into a program for 3 hours of class, no paperwork, encouragement. Now we get going. Now we can set them up through these things, through the WIOA systems, through the FAFSA systems, through everything else. But those sponsorships were critical. So now we know we're going to need to sell sponsorships to cover the initial costs of the very first 25. That's not, we don't feel like that's going to be difficult either, because as you show results and as we take the data, which is what we're doing, we're going to show the value of what we're building for the communities. And it's one piece of the solution. It's not the total solution by any stretch. But if we can start looking at what the barriers are to enrollment and into entering careers, the faster we get those overcome, the better off we're going to be.
Yeah.
So kudos to Aaron and Marine for sponsoring this.
Yes. Also, you may alluded to this a little bit. J.R. Kutch, principal of Clinton High School, just asked how many slots are left out of the initial 10. And obviously, once those 10 are filled up, is this thing going to keep going? It's got legs. It's no longer a pilot. I mean, you already discussed that a little bit, but as of right now, out of the 10, how many spots do we have remaining?
We have 6.
Okay, good. So currently 4 enrolled, which is not bad since we just launched it last week. You got 6 remaining, which I'm very excited about. I did receive a question from Rich Fallon. He's with us. He said, are there any other programs like this around the country that we've been learning from or mirroring this, or is this completely like brand spanking new? I know in the initial comments, Brian said there's something similar in his at his past employer, the past community college he worked for, but are we picking up off of best practices from other agencies?
Yeah, we, Tooling U, our partner on this, has been a really excellent partner. They, so to back up even further, not to give a long answer to the question, but to back up a little bit further, this was when the idea started bouncing around, Tooling U popped up in our minds. We made a call, impromptu. Tim and I were talking with each other. We said, hey, let's do a 3-way call. Tooling U is going to be the one we want to partner with. Let's call them up. And the 3 of us spent I say 3 of us, myself, Tim, and Tooling U, bouncing around ideas. And so they partner with organizations all around the nation. And there is a program in Florida that's very similar. So they said, here, check out. They sent us a lot of good information. They said, check out the program that Florida is doing. And so it is very similar. Going back to Tim's key points, is we wanted to make sure our program had very few obstacles. And as Tim mentioned, so many of that are just simply the paperwork process. If somebody calls Tim right now, they can start classes, that in an instant. And I'd say that's how our program differs greatly. I don't really know. Tooling you didn't know of a program that can start in an instant like that, and at no cost. Florida, the program in Florida, it's funded through state dollars. Well, if there's state dollars involved, it's not going to be in an instant. And so, the sponsorship side of this has been critical. But yeah, in this pilot here, we're constantly reaching out, seeing what else is out there, and it's been. I'll tell you, we're calling ourselves in phase 1 of this pilot. I'd say we're in phase 1.52. So it evolves every time we have discussions about this, and that's the key with having a small group, a small pilot like this, is we can react in an instant. And I haven't heard of a program that can be this flexible. So, yeah. Tim or Brian, I don't know if you want to add any comments.
Yeah, I think that's a real key to the success of this program, is being able to focus on a large funnel. And in education, we think about that funnel a lot. And if 100 students hit the click on the web link to the college, do 60 of them complete the application, do 30 of them talk to an advisor, and do 15 of them eventually enroll? And through some data analytics, we're able to track that. We know that funnel at the front end has to be big, right? So if we're allowing students to engage in this with very little front end, none of the math or the paperwork that Tim is talking about, we're building excitement and they're invested. I think that's something we show to the employers too. I thought that some of the questions were great, and Mark's question's great. How do we close the loop on this? How do we make sure that these students are moving through the system and getting jobs? Well, we have to have some employer buy-in. We have to have industry partners, and with those sponsorships, what we're able to give them are students who have already demonstrated an excitement for doing the work, an investment in doing in the work. It's not someone walking in and filling in an application by paper because they've stopped at 20 places today. This is a little more deliberate. So I think that's part of what we can sell. These are students that have already invested their time and their energies into exploring this career and are telling us they want to go further.
No, that's perfect. Actually, Aaron and I engaged in a conversation the other day. We said basically, how do we follow that individual student's story from entrance into the program to placement in a career to a year later still within manufacturing, and then soliciting their feedback regarding the manufacturing awareness program. So how do we start to build that bio of what a successful individual looks like from start to finish, and then share that? Jim, you spoke to my love for marketing and copywriting. I geek out on that stuff. So that's something I'm really excited to take part in. And this program is great. I love the way we've been able to flesh it out. I like the fact that it's available online 100%, which obviously in today's world, that's important. And I love that there's ease of use for both the student and the administration side. So thank you so much for your efforts in putting all of this together. Lastly, I like to keep these somewhat brief just because we don't have the physical cheeks and seats, and I know people are bogged down with virtual events constantly, but I'll throw it back to you guys, Brian, Jim, and Tim, if there's anything else you want to promote from a community college standpoint that we can share with both our investors, our members, and those individuals who watch our webcasts.
Yeah, I'll just I'll mention a couple things here. In March, obviously when the outbreak really started to increase, the COVID outbreak around the nation, around the world, there was a freeze on any thoughts about training. Right, it was kind of like a survival mode. How are we going to react to this right now? In the past couple of weeks, it's just been really interesting. There's companies reaching out to us more and more, and I can pass it to Tim to talk because he's spoken with a lot of these companies. They're kind of starting to be able to pick their heads up a little bit more now that they have safety in place at their organizations. and they're starting to think a little bit more of, you know what, these training needs that we've had before COVID, they're still existing when it comes to safety. You know, we do a wide range there: industrial maintenance, leadership development. So Tim, if you want to touch on a little bit of that, I know you've had some real good conversations with specifically the Clinton County companies.
Yeah, and it was funny yesterday on that call. Every one of the people on the HR task force is a current customer of ours, and we do active training with them. Maybe that's part of why they're on the call, is they're actively engaged in training and development of their workforces. Thus, they're engaged in the community. They still struggle a little bit with retention. Everybody's got regulation, everybody's got upskilling of employees, and everybody's got to get managers trained, because facing facts, a lot of our supervisors come from hourly positions and work their way up. So those are the critical pieces of what we're doing, and we now have trainings. Most of the trainings that were on the books ready to go, we're lining them back up, and we've taken this downtime to align more partnerships, more sponsorships, more ways of doing things, more groups of working together in collaboration to make training better. I think Andy heard that yesterday among several of them, of how do we collectively get the training here, because individually we can't afford it. Now we've got grants and those types of things. They can't afford it by having people out of the plant. They can only have so many at a time. They have schedules, they have shifts, and that's some of the stuff we're able to do, is we're able to adjust what time of day we train, where we train, how we train. We're even exploring the trades, especially maintenance, which is a heavy field, and it scares kids, but it's a lucrative position. Coming out of school, 60, 70, 80,000 is easily on the table within year two. So we're working on getting those, and also working through getting those on the floor into maintenance positions. So I talked to a guy yesterday, a gentleman. He was wanting to go into the career manufacturing awareness program, but he's already working in a plant as an operator, and he's in our engineering tech program. So obviously we wouldn't want him taking one of the seats, but that's the exact thing we're doing at the college with our business and industry there.
Yeah, perfect. And I apologize. I did see a hand go up, Aaron. I missed it. So go ahead and ask your question.
No, thank you. I know that JR is on, and in the high schools, you know, we work already with high school students, trying to get them interested in staying in our region and working in manufacturing, because there are vacancies. Do you see a connection right now for how we can use this program to entice like those who are graduating right now?
Well, without a doubt, you know, I think with the point early on was kids don't picture themselves right in these types of positions. And actually through the work that we've done with our regional planning partnerships with EICC too, we're trying to explore more opportunities for kids so they can see these types of job opportunities. So just the simpleness of this is magnificent. So kudos to you guys, because when you said paperwork and you said math, yep, you you got it right. I think I'm gonna take a look at these courses too. But this is amazing. This is so great. I'm like excited. So I think this is something where when Mr. Kelly said about 100 and the funnel goes down, well, if I can get this out to 1,400 people this afternoon in my newsletter, I'm hoping we can get a couple more for you guys.
And the last question I would have, Andy, is we talked about the price of sponsoring. Can we talk a little bit, like how much are we talking about if somebody does a sponsorship? What does that look like?
Yeah, our initial thought is doing sponsorships in groups of 10, just like this pilot rolled out. And a sponsorship for a group of 10 would be $2,500.
Doable, very doable, absolutely. And I think based on our conversation we had with the HR task force, they would jump at the chance because that's low hanging fruit. They don't have to worry about it. They're not hosting the training themselves. And what's the price of a new employee who comes in jam packed, locked and loaded, ready to go, motivated, and has that education? That's probably priceless in their books. So 2,500 to sponsor 10 is a great deal.
Andy, I'm going to say one last thing here. The idea of job shadowing, right? We're still talking about people who are now technically interested in manufacturing, but may still have no actual idea what a manufacturing job looks like. Now they're willing to go into the education piece, which is great, but maybe job shadowing that we can actually start working with some of the HR directors, even if they come in for a day or a couple hours. I know Andy and Angela and others have lined up these tours before. Two local companies who are more than happy to host us, just to come in even for an hour or two to just look and see literally what manufacturing is. And I'm sure through the HR task force, we'd probably find a number of companies who would be happy to do that. But I'm a visual person, so it just closes that loop, to see what manufacturing actually is. So that as they're going through this program, it isn't just paper and stuff like that. It truly is in their mind. Okay, well, this is what I'm working towards.
Yeah, I mean, I will say kudos to Kathy and Chris at the Talent Link this spring. Due to unfortunate events with the pandemic, we had to cancel about 14 scheduled plant tours that we did have. However, they're calling an audible. And what we did yesterday is threw out a call to action to the HR task force to start creating some virtual / video content that we can share very broadly, right? That's what I love about kind of virtual tech type stuff is there's really no borders. There's no four walls. There's no entrance. There's no guard shack. You can blast it out there via social media and you can reach a broad audience. So that's one of the things we're going to start soliciting from our HR folks is they don't have to be trained videographers. They all have cell phones. So go out there, maybe take some images from the plant floor, interview some of their younger professionals who are engaged in manufacturing, and then compile that and send it out as a series moving forward. So Chris and Kathy at the Talent Link have been doing a phenomenal job. I don't envy their position because really getting into the plants has been their bread and butter, and it's getting more and more difficult these days. So Tim, I don't know if you have anything to add to that.
Well, I think that's the tiered approach, and hearing Aaron and JR, there's a lot of things when we say we were on the phone for hours. High schools came into the picture really quickly. If we're going to manage our logistics on the inside of the funnel, we need to make sure we know what we're doing as we do it. But I saw this as something that I think some of our academic folks saw it the minute they heard about it was, oh, that's a great class to have for the students. And that doesn't mean we can't do a Zoom and have the online learning piece too. This stuff doesn't have to be all one thing. I think that's where, if we're going to build a sustainable program, a sustainable bench, sustainability for the next 10 years in Clinton, which goes back to answering Mark's initial question, that's how this occurs, because it's all working together. And so far, when Jim says it's fallen into our laps, it seems like every piece is working our way. That's because the hard work of everybody in the community working together to make that occur. It doesn't just occur. Everybody's making it occur, and we're trying to use whatever strength we have in the piece we have to make this work. And that's what's been so gratifying.
Yeah. No doubt the collaboration is key. We've been able to do it successfully with the Manufacturing Awareness Program. Both EICC and Clinton High School and the CRDC have been collaborating on our welding apprenticeship program, which we were so close, right? And then things got screwed up a little bit, but the momentum continues, and JR has been sending out a lot of great correspondence regarding that. So we hope to see some new breath into that program starting next school year.
And JR, have you been contacted by Paula Aarons? We, the state of Iowa, applied for a DOL apprenticeship grant for youth.
Yep.
Hawkeye is actually playing the lead on that, but we are definitely an integral player in that.
Yep. There has been some communication in regards to that. Definitely.
Good.
Well, great. Again, collaboration is key. I'm not seeing any additional questions. No hands up. We are approaching 1 hour. I just want to extend a thank you to Brian Kelly, President of Clinton Community College, Jim Brattvet, the Director of Economic Development at EICC, and then Tim Cottle, Business Solutions and Continuing Education. That's a long title, Tim. I didn't realize it was that complex at Clinton Community College. You guys are rock stars. I like collaborating with you virtually and in person. Thank you so much for your continued leadership during this pandemic. Thank you for all those who join us on this call today. And if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to myself or Aaron Cole at the Clinton Regional Development Corporation. Go to clintondevelopment.com for more info. All right. I've been your facilitator, Andy Sokolich from the CRDC. We'll talk to you guys soon. See ya.
Thank you. Bye.